This isn't like the nose. That came off like it was being picked at, pulled, tugged like taffy. This is from the inside. I can feel it when I'm going to sleep. Through the optic nerves, drinking, gently, slowly, like brandy punched through a straw. Neben Rhythm, helpmeet. Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I'm joined by reviewer George Dunn to talk about caregiver slash caretaker horror. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm a big fan, so I'm very excited to be here.
I am very excited to have you, especially since you've kind of started a series of like ultra specific niches that I think all of us have been enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I like to be as I like to have things in as little boxes as I possibly can. That's just the way my brain works. So if that works for other people too, then I'm a fan of it.
I have that brain too. That's the
Yeah,
that's the show where I'm like,
yeah,
what if I put this book into this bucket and also this bucket? And
exactly. And it's just like, why would you do a post on folk horror when you could do like just the tiniest corner of it instead?
exactly.
And it's just, I don't know. It's a bit fun.
But I want to know, what's your history with horror?
I'm able to say that I fell into the stereotype of having read a Stephen King book too soon. I was 11 when I read Carrie, so just on the precipice of being like a child prodigy horror reader. But then I was in a school. I was in a school. How? Yeah. And they had like a weekly reading quota sort of thing that I really didn't like. So I kind of fell out of love with the whole hobby to begin with for a couple of years. I made it to the school council, and it was all I spoke about. I was really trying to bring the system down at the age of 12. And yeah, so paused for a couple of years, and then maybe 5 years ago, Book Talk was in its prime. I read The Troop by Nick
Oh
Cutter,
yeah.
and I did my review on Instagram for the first time. It was not very polished, but it was there. And then it all spiraled, and I have I can't do anything half-heartedly. So I think even that year I read about 100 horror books, and I haven't stopped.
We love it. Well, we're glad we found your way back
Thank you very much.
from
It's good to be back.
but we are talking about caregiver horror. And I gave you like a list of topics I had been thinking about doing. So I guess I wanted to ask, like, what drew you to this one?
I think it was probably just I'd just read a couple that fit that we'll talk about later, and I think it
Yeah.
was just like the freshest in my mind I could think of the most. And I really like, I don't know, I think the idea of like a crushing responsibility, or I think old people can be quite scary sometimes, and there's a lot of those. I just think it the most sprung to mind. I thought it'd be a fun topic, and one of your alternatives was like dance or sports, and I can do neither of those. So um, yeah, I thought this would be a fun one. That was the thought process. Not very interesting or refined, just was the easiest.
No, I mean, it makes sense. And there's a lot of complicated emotions that
Mm,
come with being a caregiver. And especially in the case of like caring for your parents and seeing them age, I feel like there's just, it's a fertile ground for that. And I don't know what the like caregiving situation is with, NHS,
mm,
but I can tell you in the US, it is not great.
mhm. Yes. Well, I mean, we're very lucky to have the NHS. It's free at the point of use. It's not an insurance-based system. Lots of people still kind of opt for it. At end of life, living at home is better.
Mhm.
Which is understandable. It's all, I mean, it's a bit up in the air because there's a far right party that's rising to prominence over here at the minute that want to elect for an insurance based system. But for now, we're okay. We're not too bad.
Hopefully it stays that way. Yeah, I was reading a New York Times article from 2021 called The Costly, Painful, Lonely Burden of Care. which stated that the AARP found that, and this is in 2017, 41 million family caregivers in the US perform roughly $470 billion worth of unpaid labor. It's all subsidized by unpaid emotional and physical labor of families and a sense of duty and
Yeah.
familial obligation and caregiver burnout.
I think that's the horror of it, that it's, an obligation, whereas over here it might be more of a choice. Yeah, I think the burden of it being something that kind of is just has to be, it probably adds to the terror of it.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's one of those things where in some cases, there's going to be guilt either way. I'm thinking of The Exorcist, where Father Karras puts his mom up in the home
Mm,
and she dies within a few weeks. And that's one of the things that's eating away at him and haunting at him, as he feels responsible for her death because he didn't
100%.
care for her himself. Like, it's emotionally complicated.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of, in lots of the books we'll talk about, there's like a preemptive grief sort of element to it where, and you can't speak for everyone, but there's points where you kind of just like, you want it to be over, maybe, especially if it's like heavy on the suffering for the person. In lots of these situations, like resentment starts to grow pretty easily between people, especially if it's an estranged parent or something like that. It can be an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
Absolutely. The resentment and, like you were saying, the preemptive grief, I think, especially for relationships that this isn't the way you pictured it, like, a
Yeah.
spousal relationship. Like you did say for better or for worse in sickness and in health, but like, this wasn't what
Yeah.
you thought that would be. And your whole life you have been the child, and to have to move into a sort of parental role
Mm,
is tough. And I think for a lot of the movies we're going to be talking about, there's like dementia and Alzheimer's, where
yeah.
you're almost unable to recognize the person you're taking care of, and they're deteriorating before your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, just aging is kind of a really, obviously, you've got the other side of horror where it's like you don't want to stop it. You don't, that can go wrong. But
Yeah.
like it's also it is a very scary thing. And lots of these books kind of demonstrate that.
Yeah. I watched Relic for this episode, which is about a mother and daughter that get a call about, the grandmother, it's like three generations, who has been suffering with dementia, who's like been missing from her home. And they go to her home, start looking for clues. She eventually finds her way back, but there's maybe a supernatural thing going on top of everything else, which I do like. And The Taking of Deborah Logan does this
Mm,
too. I don't know if, yeah, where it's a PhD student working on a thesis on Alzheimer's, and she's interviewing Sarah Logan, who is taking care of her mother, Deborah Logan, who has Alzheimer's. And as the movie goes on, it's kind of like, oh, is that like
mm,
these are kind of Alzheimer's symptoms, but maybe is there something more sinister and supernatural at work here? And maybe is that what we would prefer in some cases,
yeah.
which is the like real kicker.
That's yes. I mean, I think The Taking of Deborah Logan is such a scary film. It's like it took me multiple times to finish it. I had to pause on occasion. I sort of hate it, but it's a very good film. Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the ones I wanted to talk about was Insidious. And I told you before we started filming that the most caregiver is probably Insidious 3, but I couldn't bring myself to discuss such an awful film when the first work's fine. It follows I'm sure people know, but it follows the Lambert family who move into a new house with their two sons and a new baby. And one of the sons, Dalton, goes up into the attic and has a nasty fall, but he's given the all clear, everything is okay. But then he's not okay because he's in a coma, and that's when various nasty things start to happen at an already very stressful time for Rose Byrne, whose name I can't remember. And it's one of those where you start to wonder if maybe is there an element of Rose Byrne is going insane with the stress and grief of it all, or is it possible that something sinister has attached itself to her comatose child? And yeah, I mean, Insidious for me is one of those big breakout horror films. Like the demons in it are unforgettable. I mean, Lipstick Face Demon is probably the best named I can think of, as well as one of the scariest. So it's pretty transcendental for me, I think, that film, which is why Insidious 3 is a shame. But yes.
Oh man, I watched Insidious like on a laptop, I want to say in my dorm room, and that jump scare,
Mm,
that one jump scare had me jumping out of my skin.
yeah. I mean, it's effective. Yes.
And then I had a few that have kind of subplots about people being caretakers. I was thinking about The Perfection, um, with Allison Williams, where like she was a like cellist, a prodigy, but had to take a few years off to take care of her dying mother. And so like when we see her, she has taken a few years off from this music touring circuit
Mm,
and is now back, and it becomes a whole other movie. I love it. It's like one of my favorites, but it does explain a little bit about her character. And I was thinking about The Haunting, and I mean, The Haunting of Hill House, you know, and Eleanor being a caretaker for her mother. And again, like the
yeah.
resentment and the guilt that comes with that, that plays a huge part in her
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched all of the stuff you just said, but I think it goes to show kind of the impact on your life that maybe, the first person that springs to mind as kind of a victim of all of this is the person who's receiving the care, but also, many of many people put their entire lives on hold to give the care, and maybe kind of go a bit underappreciated for that. But yeah.
I was also thinking of Would You Rather, which is Brittany Snow, and she takes care of her younger brother who has a health condition that requires kind of round the clock care. And she is offered like a proposition to come to this dinner party where she could possibly win a large sum of money. And when she gets there, she learns that that sum of money is if you survive the
Mm,
night. And that's the thing that's keeping her going through all of these, very tortuous decisions.
yes. I mean, I think you put on the list, but I just love it. It's Saint Maud.
Yeah.
I only watched that like this year, a couple of months ago for the first time, and I it's such a great film. So I mean, that one follows Maud, who is a freshly very devout Catholic, who takes on end of life care for her patient Amanda, and she's kind of a mean boss to begin with, which is fair enough because she's quite ill and in constant pain, and Maud is quite intense. But eventually they begin to kind of warm to each other, and there's a brief point in the film where there's almost a nice dynamic between them. But then, as Maud grows to like Amanda more, she becomes concerned about her ways. She's a lesbian. Maud is pretty sure she's hiring an escort, and she becomes determined to save her soul, which works out well for nobody. And I really like the film's commentary on caregiving, but also kind of when religion borders into mania and intolerance. And I think it's a cracking film.
Oh, it's so good, and the ending is one of my
Mhm.
favorite endings. Yeah, Maud is also just, like, essentially making her own religion, like,
It's the
she's
Book of
interesting.
Maud. Yeah.
Yeah, the Book of Maud is exactly it. Yeah, I had these, like, separated into, like, caregiving for a family member, and then, yeah, you get into more, like, the professional caregiving. So these are people that are
Mm.
being paid to do this job. And for Saint Maud, we know that she had a nursing job,
Yes.
which she was let go from, and so this is her new gig, but she's definitely haunted by the events that led to her
Mm.
firing.
Yes. I really like the kind of ambiguity of that because, I
Yeah.
don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we ever really get any firm details on that, just that
No, there's just
something
kind of
happened.
flashbacks and,
Mm.
people mentioning it when they see her, and you also know that Maud isn't her name, like, it's the
Yeah.
name she's given herself. Oh, I was also thinking of the skeleton key,
Mm.
which I talked about with Anna for Louisiana Horror, but that's Kate Hudson taking care of this bedridden old man, and this creaky old house, but
Mm,
he can't communicate. But he gets to a point where he is terrified and trying to communicate with her, and he has quite a commandeering wife who
yes.
seems to step in, like, right when he's
Mm,
trying to communicate something or get something out, so it's just foreboding all around, like
yeah. I mean, it's like a reverse misery. It's like, is something happening? Is he being kind of kept there against his will? Or
Yeah,
is she just stressed and projecting?
yeah. Well, I mean, Misery
Well, there you go. Segue.
taking, I think, the benevolence we award to caregiving on its
Mm,
head. What
yeah,
if Caregiver evil, actually?
indeed. Yes, possible.
Oh, Annie Wilkes, you will always be famous.
Yeah, she is. I think Misery is probably the one case where it's clear in my mind that the film is better than the book. No offense to Stephen King, but
I think people
I'm
are gonna
gonna.
have thoughts about this.
They're welcome to shout at me, but I'm firm in my stance. I just think that that moment of anticipation with the sledgehammer is probably the most horror. I saw it very young, to be fair, but it's the most horrifying moment. I have like a I saw Paul Tremblay talk about this, I think, in his essay in Why I Love Horror, where he saw Jaws as when he was young, and he's seen scarier films since, but Jaws just remains terrifying. And I think that's the phenomenon that I have with Annie Wilkes bringing that sledgehammer down. It's the worst thing ever, in my opinion.
It's just the absolute helplessness.
Hmm.
And one of your picks we'll talk about later, but is kind of POV, the
Mm,
person that needs
yeah,
to care themselves and how scary that is to find yourself in that
yeah,
position.
100%.
Well, should we talk about some books?
I would love to talk about some books.
Okay. I This is a recent read for me. I think it came out this year, is A Veritable Household Pet by Viggy Parr Hampton. And this story is kind of dual perspective. The way you're reading it, it kind of seems like a true crime documentary. Like you have the two sisters explaining what happened and going back and forth, and you get the different perspectives on the story. Essentially, it is about the two sisters, Ellen and Darla. And Darla was lobotomized at 11 years old. And it was kind of at the tail end of lobotomy being a thing in the United
Mm,
States. Like it was like the late 60s when it was kind of starting to be seen as barbaric.
yeah, questionable.
And the way that this story is told, because Darla, due to this procedure, remains very childlike in the way that she talks, even as an adult, like it has really stunted her emotionally. And you have Ellen, who is talking about her being lobotomized and it essentially making, whatever situation that her parents were struggling with her so much worse because she's lost physical faculties. So now the caregiving is exponential, and the strain that it takes on the family. It reads a lot like a VC Andrews story where
Mm,
it's like this happened
the
and now the family is falling apart and there's all these dark secrets that are going on here. And then Ellen and Darla find themselves to be orphans and get taken in by a neighbor, and it's just their whole saga.
mm.
So, would I say this is the feel good read of the year? I would
Yes.
not, but I was very wrapped in like what was happening in this story.
Vicky Hampton is one of those authors who I'm very aware of, but have just never picked up something from, which is disappointing for me. The Rotting Room is one that I'm eager to get to, but that sounds pretty good as well.
That's
And
on my list, yeah.
I do like a depressing read, so I will get on it. Uh, my first pick is came out last month. It's The Caretaker by Marcus Clure, and this is kind of a different one. It's not really a caregiver; it's a caretaker. Our protagonist is house sitting, but it still comes with all that kind of pressure and crushing responsibility. When I heard that Marcus Clear was following up his hit Haunted House debut with another Haunted House book, it did raise my eyebrow a little bit, but it was very good. I'm billing it as Jordan Peele's Us meets Old Country by Matt and Harrison Query. It follows Macy Mullins, whose dad died recently, and she's been fired from her barista job, so she's strapped for cash. There's a looming eviction notice, and her younger sister Gemma has started shoplifting things to try and get by, which isn't what she needs. So she ends up one Craigslist ad later, house sitting for Grace Carnswell, and she's offering her $9,000 for 3 days, which is an offer you can't really refuse. It comes with the condition that Grace's husband, what's his name, David, who passed away recently as well. The conditions that he set out for the home, the rites as they're called, that need fulfilling, and they're incredibly detailed, and seemingly just the deranged ramblings of a man on his deathbed. But when events that the rites detail start to take place, Macy realizes that her gig has come with responsibility on a cosmic scale, and she is in trouble. And it's just such a sinister book. I think I said in my review that like the spaces between the words on each page feel hostile, and I kind of smashed it if I'm being honest with myself. But it's just it's so uneasy. And there's a film in production, yay, with Sydney Sweeney. Ugh.
Fun.
Um, but I will watch it. I'll give it a go, and I'm putting it in the freezer.
Oh man, I just finished reading it, and yeah, I think just the crushing weight of the responsibility of not knowing what you signed up for. And with her dad's death, I mean, she is essentially her younger sister's
Yeah,
caretaker. Um, but also, there's a lot of anxiety with the younger sister who's calling her constantly to see how she's
yes.
doing and what's going on.
Yeah,
But
they do have a really
oh,
interesting dynamic in terms of who's been parentified and who's responsible. That's a good point.
yeah, there was so much so much stress with all the rules where it's like, never let this happen. And it's
Mm.
like, but if you do, please read this envelope.
You know the TikTok kind of thing where it's like, I don't know what it is, cut this wire or whatever, and then it's like, do
Yes,
not cut
I
this
know what
wire,
you
and it feels like this endless loop of like just completely getting it wrong, and things just get worse and worse, and you think it's as bad as it can be, but it's not, as you soon find out, and it's a stressful book.
yeah, the most stressful house sitting gig ever.
Hmm. Yes, I'm gonna be a bit more weary of house sitting next time I'm asked. Don't ask me, actually.
My next pick is Frostbite by Angela Sylvain. This is set in the town of Demise, North Dakota, where a comet has crash landed, but on that comet was an alien worm that is now infecting animals with a memory loss inducing bite. And this is all right before Christmas. I know, and we're following 19-year-old Raylene, who is taking care of her mother, who has dementia. And so within the first few chapters, you get like the heartbreaking reality that Raylene has to live with, that she can't leave and go to college. She has the financial responsibility to stay home and take care of her mother, who believes that her father is still alive and wants to know why, like, her favorite TV show isn't on TV, and just the physical and emotional toll that all this responsibility is being placed on her shoulders. It's funny because I think when Angela talks about this, she's like, it's a fun, campy, good time. And it is. It's very
It is.
like 1980s action fun. But I just think about Raylene and her trauma taking care of her mother, and then people in her town being infected by a memory loss inducing illness.
Yeah,
Like, and it's just become her reality everywhere. I feel for her.
yeah. I didn't know that a book with like zombie prairie dogs would upset me so, but it did. So
Oh,
fair enough.
I told her, I'm like, "You made me cry," by the
Mm.
way.
But no, it was really fun. But
It was
also,
fun. It's a good, she's good at balancing it. She has
yeah,
her heartbreaking moments, as like all zombie stories do, like the people you
yeah,
love get overtaken and you don't recognize who they are anymore, and
yeah,
I'm putting it in the fridge, I
yeah.
think. It has its, like, very gory over the top moments, but it's got an emotional punch on it.
Yeah.
It's a secret softie.
Mm.
That's Frostbite by Angela Sylvain.
My next one is not fun and campy whatsoever. It is The Vessel by Adam Neville. And I can't think of anything less fun or campy, to be honest with you. It is a pagan, witchy story that follows a struggling woman named Jess who accepts a job as a relief care aide for an elderly, wheelchair bound dementia patient because she's really desperate. The woman is called Flo, and her house is in this really nice, quaint village, but it's creepy and massive and labyrinthine and haunted. And Flo herself, just like her home, is very sinister. She has some secret behaviors, and Jess's daughter is put at risk by it. So it's safe to say that the job that was meant to keep her afloat and take the burden off her shoulders did not do that. Um, it's really great. It has some really scary moments and some passages. I read this in 2022, and there's just a couple of scenes that still I consider every now and then, but it is quite slow burn. Those aside, there's a lot of description in there. Really nice description, but a lot of it. Um, so I think I would put it like in the back of the fridge where things can get a little bit icy.
Okay.
But, have you read this one?
I haven't. No.
I think it's I think it's his shortest like
Okay.
novel, if not it was for a long time. So it's a slow one, but it's definitely worth a read if you are creeped out by old people. Because Flo, who is on the cover, it has a great cover, but a very scary cover. Um, she's scary. She's really scary.
I can picture the cover. Okay.
Mm.
Hagsploitation, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that lately because I rewatched Weapons the other day, and I went to go and re-watch it on Letterboxd, and I'd seen one of my friends had written a review, and it was along the lines of Zach Cregger has a thing with old women that he just needs to let go of, and I was like, I hadn't thought about that, but that's true. So I'm being more conscious these days.
Yeah. I know I saw that come into the conversation with
Mm,
X too, like around the time that came out.
yeah, there's something about them. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, it's probably to do with the tangible proof of our impending mortality.
I think that's it. I think that's it.
My next book is The Only One Left by Riley Sager, which is, I think, much more of a thriller mystery, but you are following a girl named Kit who is a home health aide, and she is hired to care for a woman named Lenora Hope. And in this story, Lenora Hope has been made infamous through a nursery rhyme because all the locals believe she murdered her entire family. And it's supposed to be very like Lizzie Borden esque,
Mm,
but like they couldn't prove it. She's obviously not arrested. She got away with it. And so when she goes to care for Lenora, Lenora is in her 80s. She is in a wheelchair, and a series of strokes has rendered her mute, so she can't talk. This estate is like on a cliffside. So it's this like, a palatial cliffside estate with like possibly a murderer client. But Lenora grabs Kit's hand one day and starts communicating, like points to her typewriter, and she hands her the typewriter and she starts saying like, I want to tell you everything that happened, the
ooh,
truth. And so she starts figuring things out, but then it seems like other people in the house, keep barging in and do not want
mm.
this exchange of information to happen. So you're trying to like get to the bottom of like what's going on here.
Well, I mean, I've seen it about. It's never really called to me, but it's calling at the moment. That sounds pretty good.
I thought it was a fun time.
Is that a freezer book?
No, I would say it's room temperature. We're playing with a lot of gothic tropes here, but I would say this is firmly in like the summertime like mystery.
Nice. I like to dial down the horror a bit when I go on
Yeah.
holiday, so maybe I'll go for that one. Well, my next one is Helpmeet by Nabin Ruthnam. And I don't know if you've
Yeah,
read it, but
I
it's
have.
so good. It's a historical, domestic, gothic little novella. I think it's like 94 pages. So if you're listening and you want to read this, you could do it today, is all I'm saying. It's for fans of Cronenberg and LaRocca, but also like Henry James, you know?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's November 1900, and Dr. Edward Wilk is falling apart, literally. And having been consistently unfaithful to his wife Louise, his comeuppance comes in the form of a vicious disease. That rhymed. Edward is not suffering from syphilis, it's deduced, but with something never before seen. And you start to think maybe he's just got like a severe case of man flu, but then his nose falls off. So, you know, it's fair enough. Followed by his eyes, which and then he loses loads of weight. So he's pale and frail and now completely dependent upon the wife that he has abused, berated, and cheated on for years. And knowing that he's going to die, he wants his swan song to be at his old family home outside of Buffalo. So all he wants his beloved wife to do is to haul his deteriorating arse to this manor in Buffalo. We spoke earlier about the resentment that grows between caregiver and caretaker. It's kind of the one I had in my mind when I was saying it, because Edward is so morally bankrupt. He's
Yeah.
just a knob. We don't really have too much sympathy for him, and it's an interesting dynamic because it's about kind of love and control, which I think are probably the two big facets of this kind of horror. And you know, it takes a real kind of love to swap out your husband's eye socket cotton balls, I suppose. The commentary on control and ownership is 1900. He seems to keep a bit of that control for quite a long time before joyously the dynamic shifts and Louise is able to renegotiate her relationship. But yeah, I love this book.
This was a weird one.
It's so weird. I'm going to say that this one, it's really gross and gory, but I don't think it's particularly scary. I think it's low stakes because we don't really care what happens to Edward, really. So I'm going to say that it's room temperature, but very grim. So
Yeah.
be cautious.
Be aware.
Yeah.
Well, you were speaking about caretakers. I felt like we had to talk about The Shining
Mm.
by Stephen King, where Jack Torrance and his family take on a caretaking gig in this hotel for the winter.
Mm.
You know, have we always been the caretakers?
It sounds like a great idea, you know, an isolated, cold hotel. I just that book. I read it not long after I read Carrie at the age of 11, and there's just something about it for me that it gives me chills. I need to. I still haven't read Doctor Sleep, which feels quite criminal, to be
Have you
honest. Now that I
watched
say
it?
it. No, because
Okay.
I can't bring myself to before I've read it. I just need to get a wriggle on. The Shining is just massive for me.
When I found out I was pregnant with my son, I was reading all those pregnancy books that are like, you need to be like, they want to hear the sound of your voice. You need to read to
Mm.
them. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just read what I'm reading. He's not going to know the difference. And I was reading The Shining. So,
Wow. Wow. I mean,
you know what? He loves horror now.
yeah, teach him early. I have Mary by Nat Cassidy. Mary has been going through, or she thinks, perimenopause, and she's putting some quite intense symptoms down to that. She's hearing voices and seeing things, and is eventually fired from her job at a bookstore in New York City, which is very sad. And she moves back to Arizona to care for her Aunt Nadine, and it's there that things get worse for Mary because she's being haunted by murdered women and her own history. It's a bit of a slow burn, I'd say. It's full of feminist rage, and the last third of it is insane, mind-boggling. It's really very good. Mary's voice. I mean, I know I'm speaking as someone who's not perimenopausal, but Mary's voice is so believable, and Nat can write, and I loved the voice of it. There's that weird dynamic again where Aunt Nadine is just kind of not the most pleasant of people. So there's that interesting kind of who's actually got control in this situation. Mary as a narrator is unreliable, and that evolves throughout the novel in a very memorable way.
Aunt Nadine was a character.
She
I think
was.
you also find out that she ran off her previous caregiver
Mm, mm.
because she just is
Yes.
so pleasant to be around.
I'm so excited that this is finally, for the first time, being published in the UK
Oh
alongside
yeah, that's
Nestlings,
right.
via Titan, which it's about time. So yes, I will be rereading at some point in the next year, and yeah, I'd put it at the back of the fridge.
Well, you mentioned Nestlings, which also has a big
Mm,
caregiving side plot because you're following Reed and Anna who have won the like New York housing lottery to get this really nice apartment in this old stately building. And Anna has recently given birth, but is newly paraplegic. She is confined to a wheelchair. And I think the book is talking a lot about the dynamics between Reed and Anna, you know, this young couple that, pictured their life a certain way. And now he has taken on a lot more of a caregiver role because of the changes to Anna's physical limitations, and
mm,
then Anna's own relationship to her body because she was a dancer. She was a very physical person that lived and expressed herself via her body. So, like the absolute blow that it is that, that's a change she's going to have to deal with. I think there's just a lot of realistic blow ups in the book
yeah.
that come from Reed, like Anna blows up at her physical therapist. I think this book really deals head on with the unspoken things like you don't want to talk about when it comes to caregiving.
Yeah, I think that's characters are always kind of jumping off the page. I think the dynamic and, like you say, some of the blow ups capture that kind of frustration in a way that lots of books don't really even attempt. So credit, he's all right, Mr.
Yeah,
Cassidy. Yeah, fair enough.
uh,
Fair play.
he's pretty good. We'll give him that.
He's all right. My next one is My Darling Girl by Jennifer McMahon. Have you read it?
No, I haven't, but it is on my bookshelf.
Well, this is another Christmas one, so save it for December.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's a possession story. It's like Die Hard, It's not very festive at all. It follows a burnt-out author called Alison who is attempting to navigate Christmas, which is her least favorite part of the year. And she's endured years of abuse from her mother, who's an alcoholic. But even in spite of Christmas, is as happy as she's ever been. She has a overly enthusiastic but supportive husband called Mark, and two kids who she loves. So all is well really until Mavis messages to say that she is dying of stage 4 pancreatic cancer and wants to do so surrounded by her family. And it seems that she's mellowed, so she allows her back into her life to meet her children and allows her to stay. And things are going okay. It's a bit weird, strange dynamic, but Mavis seems to have developed a soft spot for Alison's youngest daughter. But then, when Mavis captures Alison alone, she starts telling her things about Alison that she missed and couldn't possibly know about. And we start to think maybe there is something supernatural afoot with this mother. And this is another one with an unreliable narrator where we're kind of constantly questioning the reliability of Alison's narrative because she's traumatized, she's stressed, she doesn't like Christmas anyway, and this is the worst Christmas ever. And yeah, this one is such a page turner. It's paced relentlessly from what I remember. There's some nice dark humour sprinkled in that you don't really want to laugh at, but it's funny. Really nice writing, as one would expect from Jennifer McMahon. So it kind of reminded me of Seed by Anya Olborn. It's got a touch of Sarah Grand to it as well, and I would probably put it in the freezer. I
Ooh,
think it's
okay.
pretty scary.
Noted. Okay. That's going on my holiday TBR now.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's best read in December. Definitely, I think it's not Christmassy, but you should read it in
Yeah.
December anyway.
I mean, I had The Haunting of Hill House in my list, but I feel like we basically talked about that up top
Yeah,
with The Haunting and Eleanor, who, was kind of forced to be her mother's caretaker. Like in these family situations, like it usually falls to like whoever the daughter is with like, if there is a daughter with no kids or a child with
mm,
like the least amount going on, like she has an older sister who's married with children and who seems to get to have a life and a car, and Eleanor doesn't. She's just been her mother's caretaker, and it's
yeah.
really stunted her in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of resentment.
Yes.
coming from Eleanor for that.
I think there is, yes. I mean, yeah, that book, I mean, and the series, both are just favorites of mine forever. Good job, Shirley Jackson, on that one. The last one I have is We Spread by Ian Reid, which gotta say, isn't my favorite Ian Reid. But it's good. It's sly and cryptic, and it shares some DNA with the rest of his work. If you're a fan of Ian Reid, you'll probably like it. And I wanted to include it though because it's kind of that same misery situation where it's like, what if the caregiver is not the best caregiver? What if that is the issue and there's something wrong with the care you're receiving? So we follow Penny, who is fiercely independent. She used to be an artist and she's lived alone since the death of her partner. And she's really trying hard to cling onto her autonomy. She's deep in denial about her slipping memory, and she takes a nasty fall while she's trying to change a light bulb. And her landlord insists that she needs to move into care. She hates the idea, and it's instinctively just wrong for her, but she's assured that her and her partner back in the day had already set up and planned a residence if that is necessary, and she doesn't remember that, but it's possible. And despite her doubts, it's pretty nice. She finds herself admiring the scenery and another resident called Hilbert. Love a care home romance, so that's a nice angle. So she's feeling good, but then there's just something about it that us and her both seem to think is quite wrong. So the care home has some strange practices, like lots of meetings between residents, of which there's only 4 or 5 total, which is a bit strange. And the CEO is just very whispery, and something might be going on. But again, we have an unreliable narrator who has, I think, it's insinuated it's dementia or Alzheimer's. So it's quite possible equally that nothing is happening. It's a really sad existential horror about kind of, there's a commentary about art and legacy, and it's a really sad existential horror. Penny is struggling with her identity, and it's about, as an artist, has she changed the world when she's not going to be in it for much longer, probably. But yeah, it's a sinister book. It's very subtle and cold and ambiguous, and a kind of administrative horror, I think, is what I call it. I'm going to say it's room temperature, but I wanted to raise it because it's that kind of interesting angle of caregiver horror.
Yeah, of being the person that possibly needs the care, because yeah, you're right. She's kind of in denial for, I would
Yeah.
say, the majority of it. And I think you feel the stress with the loss of control with
Mm.
what's going on. And man, Ian Reid books are just so immersive
They
and
are very,
heady.
yes,
And this one had like such short chapters too that
it
you're like,
did.
you fly through it.
How did you feel about this book? Because I mean, I say it's not my favorite. That's not it is bad. I don't think it I just went in with too high expectations considering Ian Reid's other stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not up there with Foe and I'm thinking of ending things,
Yeah.
but I thought it was effective for what it was doing and it made me think, but not one
Yeah.
of my favorites of his. But I think those are all our picks. So I
Mm,
gotta ask George, do you have a chilling obsession?
I do. This is like I have an astronomical amount of detail on this if you want it. But I am obsessed with the Ervil LaBaron cult.
I
And
am not familiar.
it's insane. So my obsession began when I watched a Disney Plus documentary called Daughters of the Cult. I think it's on Hulu or something, but we don't really have that. So I watched it on Disney Plus. Um, and that's where I first came across Evil Ervil the Baron. And it was almost like a reality TV show in that it was like the way it was formatted, and it's kind of like, and then this happened, and you're like, whoa, and I cannot believe this actually occurred. But I've read a couple of books since, and it doesn't get any less insane. So Ervil LaBaron, for a long time, is second or third in command in a polygamist fundamentalist Mormon cult,
Hmm.
and his brother Joel is a prophet, or so everyone believes. But over time, Ervil gets jealous and conveniently begins having his own revelations. So he denounces his brother as a false prophet and forms his own rival cult, which is called the Church of the Firstborn of the Lamb of God. And he very quickly, very quickly afterwards, has his brother Joel killed. And so Joel's son Verlon LeBaron, the names just
Yeah,
really
these
add a
are.
lot. There's some good names, just wait. So Verlin LaBaron becomes the leader of this original cult, and they remain rivals. And he kills off a bunch of other rival cult leaders too. He kills over 35 people in the end, personally. But then he has his followers and wives, of which he has some to spare, I suppose. He gets them to do lots of dirty work, so it's hundreds. And he's kind of untouchable and constantly fleeing from the FBI. But eventually they get him in the 80s. He's arrested and he dies in prison. But Verlin LaBaron, conveniently, the next day dies in a car crash. And it seems that Ervil LaBaron's influence kind of reaches beyond the grave
Oh,
because he has written, whilst in prison, a 400-page Bible called the Book of the New Covenants, which doubles as a hit list.
my
And
goodness.
yeah. And then beyond that, because he's got so many sons and high-up associates, all who believe they have claim to be leader, his cult branches out into 4 or 5 other cults. The name that really sticks in my mind as a strong contender is Aaron LaBaron. It's a favourite. He tried for it, I think. But yeah, I think just the fact that someone can be so influential that they're able to kind of murder people from beyond the grave
Yeah.
is something I find to be quite chilling. And I just think there's so much there. I mean, that was a very condensed version and still was quite long. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
That
I
sounds fascinating.
it is fascinating. It's just very dramatic. It seems like it could be just a poor film, but no, it happened.
But moving on to our final segment, I gotta ask, what is your final girl song?
I'm gonna go "Bitch" by Meredith Brooks because I
Perfect.
just think that I mean it's got a nice guitar, kind of so it's kind of badass, but also I can just picture us like walking away from a flaming building that's playing. Maybe the Glee version specifically. Actually, I think I try and channel Sue Sylvester in all I do. So yeah, I think "Bitch" by Meredith Brooks would be the one.
I love that. I love that. I love your love of Sue Sylvester.
Oh,
My
so
mother
good.
too. Loves
Exactly.
Jane Lynch.
Yeah, that's the only altar I worship at is Jane Lynch's.
There's only one person who can tell you
Indeed.
who you are.
Yes.
Me? No. Me. Sue Sylvester. I did have one that I was thinking about because I was listening to 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying. It's
Mm,
full of hits. And I was thinking of Many Men. Many men have wished death upon me. I'm like, you know what?
apt.
There we go. Let's go with that.
That's a good bit. That's a great pick.
Sonically, I would also go with PIMP because I feel like that's just jovial. Like the
Yeah, I think that would fit as well. There's something I just like to be uplifted by the final girl song at the end. I don't want anything too grim. So
It's true. I do
yeah,
love a little bit of levity when it's like a little wink. Like, I
yeah,
made it.
yeah.
All right. Well, George, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to me about caretaker horror.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
Where can the people find you online?
I am at George's Reads, so George S. Reads, about every platform you can imagine, mostly Instagram and TikTok, but also Blue Sky, Threads, Substack, everywhere but Twitter,
Yeah.
or X, I suppose. But yeah, that's about it. I write reviews for fanfiaddict.com, the horror section there. I have my own dead podcast that has not seen anything for months, called the Terrorium, which is much cooler when it's written down. But yes, there too, if you really, really want.
We love the wordplay.
We do love the wordplay. Well, it started as a Substack newsletter, and I was like, this is cool. And then I decided I was going to do it as a podcast, and I said it for the first time. I was like, this is not as good when I'm saying it. It looks better on the page, but there you go.
Thank you out there, and thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast posting episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Books in the Freezer. If you would like to support the podcast, there are a few ways to do that. One of the ways is to share about it on social media or to leave a review on a site like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or to join our Patreon community at patreon.com/booksinthefreezer. I have been your host, Stephanie Gagne. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.